Welcome to the Totally Unreal Book Club podcast, an improvised comedy podcast where everything's made up and the books aren't real. But we'll never admit that. Are you ready? Let's do it.
This book club is totally unreal.
I'm your host, Will Wood, and today at the table we have, starting to my left, Caitlin Dawkins.
Termite walks into a bar. He says, "Where is the bartender?"
A Neil and a Chrysalin and McMullen Wood.
Hello.
Hey, kids.
Dahi English.
I'm in a madhouse right now.
And Stephen Mama. He's my mama from another mama. My mama, Stephen Marriott.
Yeah, and if you keep that up, I'm going to send you to your room.
So anyway,
Oh my god.
today we have a thing that we do. It's the same thing we do every day here on the podcast, and that is to review a book that one of us has brought to the table for everyone else to read, which we have done previously during the week leading up to the time you're listening to this now. So having said that, let's do that. Dahi, what was that book?
Okay, so the book that I brought was a DIY book that's destroying international yachts.
I don't know why I'm laughing. I read the book and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's by Daniel Inverness Yogi. That was the name of the author.
Now, I like how you brought up this is a DIY book because this is a series of books, of which there are two.
Yep. Yeah. There's.
So
it's part of the series of books written by DIY himself.
Well, the other one was destroying national yachts.
Yeah, that's the other one. It's not part of the DIY series, but it's written by DIY.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that
prequel.
there are two books in the DIY sub-series.
Yeah, I suppose.
It is a two-parter,
Except the other
but
one's
at the same
DNY.
time, the one doesn't have anything to do with the other one. It's just interesting.
It is.
How they did that.
Sorry, can you bring Will back?
Hello. So yeah, you're my best friend.
What?
I'm just saying that to anybody. So I'm just going to slip in and out of voices this week because that's what I feel like doing.
I can't wait.
This is going to be an interesting one, folks.
So we have a lot of people on the podcast this week. It's many people.
Is this the most people in the same room that we had on the podcast?
Up to this point, yes. There are a total of 6 people on this podcast, which is difficult. Oh, now I'm just combining the 2 voices together, which is interesting.
3 voices.
Yeah, because we only have 5 microphones, so that's why my sister and her mister are sharing one. Getting real close.
Are we going to talk about the book this week?
Yes, let's... Well, for those of you who are still listening...
Excuse me.
For those of you left, let's talk about the book. Now,
Yes.
Irish David...
Mm-hmm.
That's you.
That's me.
Tell me why you picked this book.
The main reason that I picked this book is because I thought it was funny that the author's initials were also the initials of the book. That was the main reason.
The book itself is horrendously boring.
Is it boring?
Yes.
That would be a
Good input there, Chrissy.
definite yes.
Okay, well,
From our perspective, but see,
I thought it was about boarding yachts.
Only to destroy them.
Yes.
Or like building them, like putting the boards on them.
Well, I mean, that's a different kind of DIY. That's not in this
true,
book.
yeah.
See, I actually thought it was about. I thought it was about waterboarding.
Mm-hmm.
Because you board the boat on the water.
Yes.
In international waters.
Why are we talking about boarding?
Because this book is very boring.
Oh. This is destroying international yachts. So I'm
It's also
confused.
destroyed.
It's a spy thriller, obviously.
In order
yeah.
to, it's like Mission Impossible, but Mission Impossible mixed with Speed 2, which took place on a boat. In order to destroy the boat, you must first get on the boat.
Of course.
Because you can't remotely destroy a boat. Everyone knows that.
I would just plant C4 on the side personally, but
Yeah, but how are you going to plant it if you're not on it?
from the side.
Well, you can't get to the side of the boat when it's on the water. Come on, you gotta You gotta actually
Wait for it to be in dock.
No, you see, that's the thing. The boat. You must have missed this in the book. The boat is perpetually on the water, and in order to get fuel and stuff like that, they actually have helicopters and planes flying in to refuel.
But if I wanted to destroy a boat, I wouldn't pick that boat.
Okay, I think you guys are getting very philosophical here over a book that is really I mean, I wouldn't call it a children's book, but there are pictures on every page, and it is the story of Thomas the Boat. And his journey through.
Well, yeah, just because they named the boat Thomas, which I thought was really surprising because all boats are.
Well, they named the boat Thomas. Plus, he has 2 giant eyes and a mouth, and he talks to everybody in the book.
You see, it was a competition that they had for kids just to get them interested in naval stuff.
Yeah,
and
it's an artificial intelligent boat.
Yeah.
It's an AI boat. That's why he keeps talking to
It
people.
is more robot than man.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's a robot.
And that's what makes destroying it so much more difficult, right? And so that's why it takes an entire
rowboat,
novel to
but not
destroy
spelt
this
like
boat.
rowboat.
Or do they destroy it? We don't know yet. It's spoilers.
We will know after we've disclosed it at the end of the spoilers part. Speaking of which, spoiler warning going up.
Warning. Incoming spoiler. Warning. Incoming spoiler.
Yeah. Now we're into spoilers, and I've just spoiled myself. In the
Oh, that's what that smell is.
No, I mean, I spoiled
Ew.
myself because I read the book already. So I know
all
what.
read the book.
Yeah, but I know what happens.
So we
So
all
do
do.
we all.
So say we all.
I got Neil to read it to me while I slept.
So you didn't retain any of it.
No.
That's why you're so tired.
You must tell us about your dreams, though.
Yeah, what kind of Thomas the rowboat?
Well, it
dreams
kind
did
of
you
turned
have?
into Pommus. It wasn't quite Thomas.
Well, Pommus shows up later. Pommus is the anti-Thomas.
Yeah, I think she only got half of it.
So tell me about Pommus. How did you interpret Pommus? The rowboat.
Scary. A lot of it was nightmares instead of dreams.
Yeah, I mean, that is how a lot of relationships go. So Pommus being, of course, Thomas's love interest and the anti-Thomas, as most relationships go,
Yes.
it definitely became a nightmare. So I see how you interpreted that as your own nightmare, unlike Thomas, who interpreted it as a literal nightmare, because Pommus was always trying to kill Thomas with C4.
What he used was basically he created his own personal android army within himself to board Thomas.
Right, which they then used to play Battleship, and she was constantly throwing bombs at C4 and just kept sinking his battleship.
Yeah, that is exactly what happened.
Well, that's in the intro to the
Yeah.
book. That's in the prologue.
Speaking of intro and
Battleship.
prologue, should we read the back of the book?
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, Neil, why don't you read the back of the book to Chrissy while she sleeps?
I really have to pee.
All right, well, you go pee and I'll read the back of the book.
God.
Okay, Chrissy, get your nightcap ready. Here we go.
No, he means liquor.
Oh.
Hello, readers. It is I, the book, which is the back of the book, that is to say, and I am here to tell you about the long, long journey of which I am about to take you on if you were to open the front of this book and then open it and go into page by page. This is the journey of one Thomas, the tank boat, and another Pommus, the death boat, in which they have a relationship with much nuance and a lot of steamy betrayal. And furthermore, there is a lot of battleship play with C4 and real C4, and also we are going to teach you how to do your tax returns during this book. And if you're still awake, then good job, because this was a trick.
What happened?
This book is great. Read the book.
Okay, now I
You got a
think
bit of drool on your cheek there, Chris.
Pommus is really scary.
She is a bitch.
I think at this point it should be we should bring up the fact that Daniel Inverness Yogi was actually an AI that wrote this book. He's an actual person.
It's an amalgamation of many different AIs which were forced to read many Thomas the Tank Engine books, as well as war, like nonfiction war accounts,
And
And-
the script for Battleship, the movie.
as well as 6 of the best Sex in the City episodes.
And it was fed rule books for board games as well by accident.
Yeah.
So it had to
So-
interpret all of this, and this is the script that it spit out.
And it's AI as in amalgamated intelligence. Because it's just a bunch of stuff all put
Exactly.
together.
It's not artificial; it's amalgamated.
Well, you can't spell Daniel, Inverness, Yogi,
Yogi.
Without amalgamated
AI
intelligence.
and several other letters.
Yeah. Like a Y and a G.
That's true.
Those are high-scoring letters
Also,
in,
his name,
Scrabble.
Daniel Inverness Yogi, is an exact anagram for amalgamated intelligence rhythm book telling story man.
In some language.
That's incorrect.
In some language.
No, it's true. Look it up. It's in a book. This book, in fact, here it is.
In a book.
So, as it is an amalgamated intelligence biorhythm product, it's not the easiest thing to read, which is probably why Chris fell asleep. And as you can tell by the back of the book, it was very oddly written. But we will interpret it for you in the way that we feel is best interpreted.
Yeah, like if you follow the tax filing instructions, you will probably be put in jail. So do not follow those.
No, because it got those from a lot of the monopolistic principles of the Parker Brothers game Monopoly.
Yeah. The rules of Monopoly was one of the things fed to the amalgamated intelligence.
Yes, with many other board games, including Battleship, The Game of Life, and strangely enough...
Hungry Hippos.
Yep.
And Scrabble.
I didn't know that had a rule book.
Yeah. How is he going to know how hungry they are?
That's true.
And what
which is
button to press.
which is also why when Thomas and Pommus get to the Hippo Ocean...
Hippotion.
yeah, the Hippocean, which is full of just toxic sea marbles.
As well as multiple bloats of hippopotamuses.
Hippopotami.
Yes, that's a bloat is the collective noun for
I
hippopotamus.
love
You
learning
learned
all
that
these
on a
collective
recent trip.
nouns.
Yeah.
That's my favorite thing about these books is just learning collective nouns for different
Yeah.
animals. That
It's
we can
actually
nouns
it's
are one of my favorite
actually
things.
it's actually hippopotamus. Just so you know.
Just according to the Hungry Hippos rule book. That's what it is.
right.
Yes. Anyway, so let's do our best to try to. I think we've talked a lot about the different things in this book, so let's do our best to try to put this from front to back and give
An account of the actual story.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it starts off in the year 1931, which I believe is the year that Monopoly was first published, but I'm not sure about that.
1933, actually. That was an inaccuracy. on the
Oh,
book's
okay.
part.
We're not going to bother looking it up because we don't care. But anyway, so it takes place in 1931 or 1933. So
No, I meant Monopoly was invented in 33. The book takes place in 31.
Oh, okay. All right. So it takes place in 1931. It starts in war-torn Germany.
We read a lot of books from Germany.
This is 100% amalgamation. Well, it starts in war-torn Germany and then quickly moves to space.
Well, the space between war-torn Germany and France.
Poland, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, where they are boarding many naval ships.
Despite it being landlocked.
Despite it, indeed.
Well, this is from an amalgamation intelligence.
Of course,
so,
yes.
Also, they are paying for this with lots of $500 bills. So
Their whole goal is to get Boardwalk.
that is true.
No, they
spoiling
wanted
the
the
book.
boards to walk. That's why they started adding little feet to the ships that they were putting the boards on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
But
and
park places, that's where you park the boat.
well, Park Place is what they kept shouting when they wanted to land. Park Place. They were just pointing
Trying to tell the AI to park in the... Yeah.
in the place.
The AI has a limited vocabulary.
But boy, can it do your taxes.
Not very well.
No, but it can do them. In the same way that I can do your taxes.
And you'll end up in jail.
Just like Thomas.
Do not pass go, do not collect $200,
Go straight to jail.
Second place in a beauty pageant.
which is where we introduced Thomas, right?
Yeah.
Right. So in the 77th National Pollyannic Beauty Contest, we find the
Polandic?
Yeah.
Polish. Polish is the word we're looking for.
No, the amalgamation called it Polandic. Pollyannic, sorry, Pollyannic. Like Napoleonic, but minus the ne.
Icelandic, Polanic.
Anyway, I didn't write this. The book did.
Yeah.
I mean,
Not
you
even
could
a
say-
person wrote this book.
Yeah.
Yeah, the book wrote itself.
Absolutely nobody wrote this book.
Right.
Yes.
So don't tweet me. Don't at me. Anyway.
Don't at me, bro.
Anyway, so in the beauty contest, we find that there are 3 ships that have just been built for the Napoleonic army stationed in Poland. Because not that Napoleon, but Napoleon Dynamite. because it also fed in some of the worst movies from the early 2000s. So Napoleon Dynamite is there judging the boats because he had just won his dance contest and he won a trip to Poland in 1931.
Not really much of a prize, but there you go.
Yeah, more of a punishment to get Napoleon Dynamite out of high school and into war. And so he was there and he was like, sweet, this one. And he pointed at Thomas. Of course, Pommus was also there and she thought that she was being selected, but she didn't. So, of course, she was set for the wood chipper. And she escaped by kicking her brother in the face of a robo-man.
Also, you can't put a ship in a wood chipper because it was not made of wood. So that was a problem.
It was only given one source for boats, and it was just all
Vikings.
wooden,
Wooden
Viking.
Viking
Well, the
ships.
problem is that they wanted to build a lot of it out of brick, but nobody would trade them any sheep, so they had an excess of wood. They had an excess of wood, and they stored a lot of wheat on the boat because they had a lot of because they kept rolling 12s, and it just happened to be a high roller for that week, and there was a lot of wheat and wood coming in.
Oh man, speaking of the high roller, he's my favorite character. Man, he comes in and he just buys Pommus and just takes her away.
So she doesn't get destroyed.
Yeah.
And then you think you're never going to see from Pommus again, but you do almost immediately.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, Pommus wants revenge after all.
Right.
She came third in the beauty pageant.
Yeah, for winning the contest.
Well, coming in second. Pommus came in third, right?
Yes.
She actually
We haven't
originally
even talked about the person who came first yet.
She originally wanted to enact revenge on Napoleon Dynamite, but unfortunately, because Pommus was spared, they had to throw something in the wood chipper, so off he went. And he
Maybe this
like,
was a nightmare, but I thought the wood chipper was a whole bunch of hungry hippos.
No,
It was described like that. Yeah.
it
Oh,
was.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
the
the simile.
book described it as the wood chipper. Here, I have the actual paragraph. The wood chipper was fierce, like a bunch of hungry animals, mammals, if you will, that are large and gray, sort of like a hippopotamus, but with a little less hippo and a little more otamus.
So you read that wrong. It was
skip that middle
a
P.
bloat of hungry animals.
No, that comes next.
They were. in
They
fact,
were bloated because they were a bloat of hungry hippopotamuses.
Spelled
Plus
exactly
2.
as it sounds.
Yes, and also they were robots. Because they were a little less hippopota and a little more otamus.
Hippopotamuses.
Oh, I called them robopotamuses.
And they would chip away at the wood like a hippo at a marble.
That's what the book said.
Yeah.
And then it said free parking, and it gave you $200 because it was playing house rules.
House rules suck.
Well, every book came with 2 $100 bills right in the middle of it. That's why it cost so much.
Yeah, the book cost $75, so you were still getting the value.
There's still debate to this date if that is counterfeit money or not.
I think it was Australian dollars.
Oh.
That's worth
because
more.
It looks like Monopoly that way. It's really not. It's worth more in Australia than nothing.
It's the land of fun.
Anyway, so let's move along because we have a lot of story to cover and we are really getting sidetracked. But again, this is the book.
Well, so we've totally skipped out so far on the person who came first in the beauty pageant, Beatrix. Now, she was actually known as a bit of a prostitute.
Because she was
tugboat.
not a boat. She was a tugboat. I was just about to say she's not a boat, she's a tugboat, and Steve got in front of that. So
Yeah,
Steve would.
So, there was rumors spreading left, right, and center that she had persuaded the judges, but nobody could confirm that.
by tugging them.
Well, yeah. And but being that it was a landlocked place that this entire competition took place in, it was not like she could get very far. So,
Well, they have rivers. Even if it's landlocked, you can still get a tugboat through in a river.
this is true.
Yeah, but since it's landlocked,
Especially-
it doesn't go to the ocean, so they had to move it by carrier pigeon.
Beatrix
Took a lot of pigeons.
Beatrix was famous for her shallow bottom,
Yes.
so didn't need a very deep river.
I have to say, I am surprised that Thomas did manage to get second place in the beauty contest because, as we all know, Thomas never docks. So
This is true.
I just thought I'd bring that up. I thought it was interesting.
Well, this is where he was on, I believe it was the Reading Railroad.
That's
that,
right.
like, they hadn't finished it yet, and it was trying to go over a river, and he was floating in the river while they were working on it, and they
If you're in your car, that is not someone burping in your car. That was Will
That's on our end. There's not somebody trying to kill you.
burping.
I'm trying to get my PTSD under control, man.
Neil was involved in a vicious burping attack. We don't talk about it.
Chrissy still has nightmares about it.
And Pommus.
Continue, Steve.
Thank you. Moral of the story is he was the first boat to have wheels and became one of the amphibious boats. So he never officially docked on land, but he did go on the land, but only on the railroad tracks. They never gave him like rubber wheels that he could travel
Okay, yeah, no, I completely skimmed over that.
Straight from water to track.
on. Oh, you bet.
So, I mean, you guys are getting really caught up on like the little details here. I think we should move on to like sort of the overall story, which of course is what Dahi is about to tell us.
Well, it's basically a heist story, right? So Thomas is transporting,
Badgers?
Baked goods,
baked goods,
Badger-shaped baked goods.
and all of these
bottle
things.
caps.
Yeah, all of them made of solid gold, of course, but painted to look normal.
Yeah.
So yeah. It's
Did you
like
just remember something funny, Steve?
Yes.
What was it?
Exactly what Dahi just said.
yeah.
I forgot they were all made of gold.
Yeah, no, they revealed that at the end.
Yeah, well, it's funny because
right,
people are
right.
trying to eat the baked goods, but they're just solid gold.
Yeah, but they're all robots on the boat, so
And they're trying to spend the bottle caps,
And-
which is works out for them quite well.
Yeah, so some of the badgers are not gold though; they're real, which causes some
Yeah, they're real
problems.
gold as opposed to the fool's gold.
And then
badgers.
they're real badgers.
Yes,
so-
but they're still solid gold.
yeah. But the thing
But they're
is
also
about the
real badgers.
real badgers is that they're all petrified, so they're just as still as the golden ones.
Yeah.
It can't be stated enough. They are real badgers, and they are also real gold.
Yes.
They're called Midas badgers.
Very rare species
So
found in the land of Catan. Isle of Catan.
And the thing about all of these badgers and baked goods, etc., is that it's actually the entirety of the economy of Poland. Like the Polish banks and stuff
Yeah.
keep all of their, it's the gold
national
standard.
treasury.
Yeah, that's why they're like, well, you can always rely on the 3 Bs.
Excellent Polish
Badgers,
accent.
baked goods, and bottle caps.
Exactly. And of course,
Well, that was the amalgamation machine's Polish accent.
yes.
that you read in the book.
Read phonetically, yeah.
And then it was Pommus, right?
Yeah.
Pommus Stone.
Yeah. So Pommus and the High Roller basically work on a plan together to sink that boat.
Yeah.
To sink Thomas. And we continue from there.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Caitlin.
Oh, yeah. So they decide that they're going to knock a lot of tiny little holes in Thomas, because they figure if they make a big hole in him, he'll notice right away. But if they make a little bit, like a whole bunch of little tiny holes, he'll spring a lot of little leaks, and then he'll sink.
Well, this is when they decided, like, well, he's already got those other 3 bees aboard. Let's send a bunch of other bees at him. So they were launching bees at the side of the boat to punch the tiny little holes.
Yeah.
They were using
Yeah.
a bee gun.
But they're...
And those bees also consisted of all kinds of things, like baby diapers and bonbons and
Bumblebees.
yes, bumblebees, as well as bats, and then bats,
Baseball and nocturnal.
mammalian bats is what we call them.
Yeah, that is what we call them.
Mammalian.
Yeah, mammalian.
You mean
Winged
mammalian?
mammalian.
A million.
Mammalian.
They
A million mammalian.
They sent a million mammalian
mammals.
bats.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
This story checks out. I got
Yeah.
nothing to argue with that.
Also, barracudas.
Those are the underwater shots, though. There was like torpedoes.
Yeah.
Barracudas are great swimmers.
They didn't actually shoot them. They just like kind of coerced them, and they were headbutting the Thomas.
Well,
The
they
Thomas,
yeah they
as
were
he was often known.
they were after the baked goods.
Yeah.
The gold ones only though. Barracudas, like have you seen how
Barracudas
many
are
teeth they
addicted
have?
to gold.
They,
Yeah.
they wanted them for their bling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're always like, I love gold.
Sounds like my Swedish accent.
Which is actually where they got the idea for gold member.
Yeah.
No,
I know, but
unfortunately,
it sounds like my Swedish accent.
unfortunately, none of the bees actually did manage to spring any leaks, except for the bumblebees.
Yeah.
But only the ones that hit at just the right angle.
Yeah, they had to go in reverse.
I apologize. I said that's where they got the idea for gold member. But that's preposterous. Clearly, gold member was one of the like early 2000s scripts mixed into this.
You're thinking of GoldenEye.
Right.
Yeah.
Gold member is where they got the idea for the film GoldenEye.
That's not necessarily wrong.
I think I read that somewhere, actually, yeah.
No, you're thinking of Goldfinger.
Anyways, moving on. The tiny little holes
I'm thinking
that
of
nobody
cold
thought they
cuts.
would notice. Thomas didn't even notice, and he was like very slowly accumulating water and
Yeah.
beginning to sink.
He just figured he was getting old.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like, well, some joints go, some people retain water.
You know, which is strange after the beauty contest, you know.
Yeah.
He wasn't feeling quite as beautiful anymore.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah. So, he sees the Isle of Catan ahead, and he's slowly sinking in the water, and he finally realizes that in fact is sinking. But he sees a
He's
nearby.
thinking very hard
Yeah,
about what he's
he's-
going to do next.
That was his like Polish accent kicked in.
Yeah.
Did we mention how he got to? Did we mention how he got to the water?
Yeah, the carrier pigeons.
I don't believe we've mentioned that yet. So yeah, we'll just say that now. That of course, carrier pigeons took him to the water. in the
Oh,
first
yeah, we
place.
may have skipped ahead a little bit.
Speaking of skipping ahead, I'd like to skip ahead to the climax for a minute, if I would.
Of course you would.
That's where Beatrix comes back in, isn't it?
You mean Pommus?
No, Beatrix, the tugboat.
Oh yeah, and she's boarding Pommus because Pommus gets boarded.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
We
whatever,
mentioned that at the beginning. This
whatever words you want to use.
we
for
mentioned that at the beginning.
I
This
say
book
whatever
is very
floats your boat.
boring.
Whatever floats.
I was ready for it, and then you didn't say it.
I just wanted to mention that. Now we can go back to the part we were at.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
We also could just like do an awkward silence for a bit. That's fun too.
Oh, I love awkward silences. They're my favorite silences.
No, let's not do that. Okay, so of course Thomas is now thinking very hard about what he's going to do next, and in the middle of all that, it turns out that he sinks.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
But
so
a pod of friendly dolphins saves him from sinking completely. And they're led, of course, by Jeffrey, the leader of the dolphin pod.
Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yes, Jeffrey Dahmer, the dolphin. So they ask Thomas where he wants to go, where they should take him, and he says because he's underwater. But they interpret that because he's actually speaking in dolphin.
Yeah, they interpret that as which is the island of Duddle.
That's where Baymax is from. So
there's a little bit of Pixar scripts mixed into this amalgamation as well,
And
Yeah.
Disney Animation
so they
Studios
take him to.
scripts as
So they
well.
say, okay, well, off to San Francisco we go.
Yeah.
And but on the way they're stopped by B&L, by and large. A big by and large cruise liner that sends them off into the space between Catan Island and Monopoly
France.
Town in France.
yeah.
So
So
go ahead, Chris. What did you have nightmares about at this point? Oh, she's asleep right now.
she's asleep with her eyes open. It's really creepy.
That's how bad the nightmares are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's having a night terror.
A daymare.
Anyway, Steve, why don't you go ahead and tell us about the Great War?
Oh, the Great War.
It was a great war.
Oh, it was so great. Everyone raved about it for years.
Yeah, 5-star reviews on Yelp.
Yeah. So the Great War began, of course, when all the dentists had decided to board a boat, and they tried to get on board of Thomas, who was oblivious to this and never docked, so they just didn't. Then they saw Pommus going by, and they're like, oh, maybe we can board Pommus. So they ended up getting on board, and but they were really just destined for the Isle of what was it called? Because that's where, landlocked in the middle of that island, was the sea of hippos, and these hippos had
The Hip Ocean.
the hip ocean. Yeah,
They had escaped from the wood chipper.
yeah. What?
Yeah, they were the same hippos that escaped from the wood chipper and had now taken refuge in the little water hole.
The old watering hole. Anyways, the dentists were sent to try and fix the overbites that these
Yeah.
hippopotamuses had. Hippopotami. Hippopodes.
Hippopotamus.
Hippopods.
So they thought they were doing well. They were kind of like Dentists Without Borders, and because dentists are doctors too, but they wanted to be distinct and
Yeah.
separate in their own way.
Of course.
Dentists
So
without
they
borders.
land on the island to.
This is Monopoly Town, France.
No, this is
No,
on the
it's-
Isle of.
Oh, right. Sorry.
near Catan.
Yeah.
Right. Between that and so it's like it's like a triangle, like a Bermuda type triangle between the Isle of Catan, Monopoly Town, France, and
Yes.
Okay.
So meanwhile, in Monopoly Town, France, there was several people trying to get to the top of this building where all of the stolen golden baked goods were being kept, especially the muffins.
It was
which
the
were carrot
waterworks.
muffins.
It was the waterworks building.
Yeah. So in order to climb up to the building, they put a bunch of ladders up there, but somehow there was a bunch of snakes that had dropped off of this plane that were on top of the building.
Interesting point too. They didn't have any ladders, so they just used the BNO railroad tracks.
Yeah.
It was actually pronounced the BO railroad track, and it was built by people that had really poor smelling body odor.
Yeah.
But yes, that is true. They did use that, but the snakes started coming down the ladders and attacking them.
And
so
everybody
they
was
decided,
like, "Ah, shoot!"
So you're probably wondering to yourself, if you're listening to this and you haven't read the book, you're like, well, I understand there's two separate battles going on right now. One for the golden baked goods and another one that's not really a battle between the dentists and the hippos. They're just trying to be helpful. But this
They're
does not
fighting
accumulate
plaque,
to a
Steve.
great war.
No,
fighting
what
plaque.
accumulates to the Great War is when the two battles join as one.
Yes.
Well, I mean, you got to remember where all these golden bees were kept. They were all kept inside the air ducts of the ship and the building, right? And so they needed to get the grate off, and it was the Great War. They were fighting to get that grate off.
Yeah, all the screws were stripped, so it was real challenging.
They called it the honeycomb. And of course, one bee just kept going, honeycomb, honeycomb, me want honeycomb. Because of course, the amalgamation had taken in a bunch of like 90s cereal commercials.
Yeah, and there was a bear. He was confused. He was looking for Sugar Crisp. But...
And some rabbit who kept trying to eat magic tricks.
Something like that, yeah.
He popped out of the magician's sleeve, I bet.
And at this point...
No, just the tricks were up his sleeve, sorry.
At this point, Thomas was just trying to figure out how to get where he was going, so he just decided to follow his nose.
Except that he didn't have a nose, so it didn't really go anywhere.
So he fashioned one out of bees.
Honeybees.
So anyways, Thomas arrives at the island of as he was being carried by dolphins, including Jeffrey.
Jeffrey Dahmer.
And they were very polite. They actually pushed him onto a train track so that he could actually wheel around on the island.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was the Reading Railroad.
No, Reading.
Well, either way, you needed a ticket to ride.
Ha.
I think it was the Reddit Railroad. Yeah.
Well, the amalgamation machine did exist on Reddit.
Yeah.
So tell me about those dentists, Steve.
Those dentists were doing their damnedest, without borders, to fix those overbites from the hippopotami.
And the plaque.
And the plaque, yeah. But like I said earlier, the hippopotami wanted nothing to do with it, so they were just there trying to do their best.
But of course, that's when the dolphins leading Thomas showed up, and Jeffrey Dahmer...
Dolpher.
Either way.
You're right. It was Dahmer.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jeffrey Dahmer.
D-O-L,
of course,
like dolphin.
was the only dolphin left because the other ones mysteriously disappeared, leaving little bits and pieces left behind. And Jeffrey Dahmer was about 3 sizes larger than before. And, he got in there and he started eating the hippos.
But it proved to be a task too great for him because hippos, of course, are gigantic.
Yeah, and they were hungry hippos.
So
the hippos
fought
ate
back.
him.
Mm-hmm.
They bitted back.
And in the end, Jeffrey Dahmer himself was eaten alive.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's when, of course, Thomas and Pommus saw each other again for the first time since the last time they'd seen each other.
Since the beauty contest.
And that hairdryer's on our end. If you're driving right now, no one's trying to kill you.
With a hairdryer.
Or style your hair. If there is a murderer in your backseat and he is trying to style your hair, then go about your merry way. I apologize for interrupting.
Hopefully it's not Jeffrey Dahmer.
And tell him about the podcast. Have him give us a 5-star rating and review.
Lord knows we deserve it.
So Thomas and Pommus see each other, but unfortunately Pommus doesn't have the equipment to go on the railroad where Thomas is.
Yeah.
So he releases the androids from within him to go and attack Thomas. And they all, of course, try to board Thomas at the station. And Thomas is having none of this, right?
Well, because he doesn't dock.
Exactly.
So
Not
they
even at a
can't-
train station.
Yeah.
He just keeps going, right?
Yeah. And so, of course, this is what starts the real great war between Thomas and Pommus.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they're just the great war of battleship.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where all the C4 comes in, as well as C5, C6, B7.
J8 is my favorite.
The 7 Seas were involved as well, but not in a C7 style. Just a lot of ocean space.
Yep. And, of course, the battle ends when Pommus sinks Thomas's battleship and then sinks Thomas's actual ship.
Well, then it's at that point that we find out that Thomas himself
Was a yacht.
Was a yacht, exactly.
Yeah.
An
And-
international yacht, in fact.
And then comes the final climactic chapter, which we will get to right after this ad break. So this week's podcast is brought to you by Jeffrey Dahmer, the other white meat.
No. It's also brought to you by Second Place Beauty Salon. When good enough is good enough for you.
Win $10.
Every haircut costs $10.
This episode is also brought to you by the Parker Brothers. Go ahead and leave your car here.
They'll park it.
Today's episode is also brought to you by the letter B. Bees!
This episode is also brought to you by an excess of sheep when all you need is brick.
It's also brought to you by Boardwalk, the best place to be.
Since Park Place. Yeah, and finally, this episode is also brought to you by www.catastrophe.org/chicken wings and babies. And if you go to that website and enter in promo code TUBCPodcast, they will send you a free Parker Brothers board game of your choice, as well as some dishes that are currently being put away. These dishes are on our end, and if you're driving right now, no one's trying to kill you.
Or wash your dishes.
So back to the
Farm?
the salmon farm, which is where the final
Climactic scene takes place.
Oh, this is where Beatrix shows
returns.
up. Yes.
Yeah.
Tugging along.
Yeah, she is.
and everybody's got a big smile on their face.
Yeah. As she sings her tugboat song.
Tug, tug, tug. Boat, boat, boat. Tug, tug, tug. Oh, I'm sticky.
I love the tugging part.
She was
You would.
carrying a lot of honey.
Yeah, for the bees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also all the Misfit toys.
Yes.
Almost
She
forgot
was
about
sticky
the...
because of the misfit
Almost
toy.
forgot about
Well, the water gun that shoots jelly was on there.
Yeah.
Misfit Toys, right? Yeah, because there was a fourth aisle, the Isle of Misfit Toys, that
In
was
this
that was
triangle.
also in the triangle,
Yeah.
which was actually a square, or from a certain perspective,
Well-
a diamond.
It was more of a triangle because the Isle of Misfit Toys was exactly between two of the other islands in the triangle.
No.
You know what I mean?
I don't know if this is just my interpretation of it because I
is.
listened to the audiobook, so I don't really know for sure. But did this just take place in a flooded mall with different aisles?
Yes, that is correct.
Well,
Okay.
in a way, if you think of the world as a mall.
Okay. Okay, just wanted to be sure. All the board games make sense now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this is what happens when you let an amalgamation intelligence system write a book based on many different types of things, and
Yes.
also some more stuff too.
I think the whole world was a mall in this.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like the amalgamation's attempt at a jab on like consumerism.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was
Yeah.
just making sure that
Which-
everyone else got that.
Is further reinforced by the final line in the book, which we're now at, and all the world was a mall.
Yep.
Thank you all for listening to the Totally Unreal Book Club podcast, our weekly review podcast in association with the Voices of Anarchy, of which everyone here except for Chrissy and or Neil are also a member. You can check us out at www.voiceofanarchy.com or on Twitter at voicesanarchy. You can find the podcast on podcast services around the globe, and you can support the podcast on patreon.com/tubcpodcast. That's TUBC Podcast. On Twitter and Instagram at TUBC Podcast, and you can literally just find us everywhere else at TUBC Podcast. I want to thank once again the panel this week, and you can follow each of us on our personal Twitters at
CaitlinRoar.
I don't know what Twitter is.
Chrissy Wood.
H&F official.
Steve Marriott.
and the Will J. Wood. I thank you all once again, and we'll see you next week, darlings.
I want to get tugged.
Yank, yank.
Oh no, not in front of the kids.
Ooh, Isle of Misfit Toys.
was trying to burp.